Never done anything like this. Beautiful elephants.
Incredible animals. And their faces are beautifully painted.
The second leg of our journey through the Golden Triangle took us to Jaipur and Delhi, where we marveled at breathtaking sights that seem almost dreamlike.
Of the Golden Triangle is that it is a magical place unlike any other in India. We've spent a lot of time in southern India, which aside from the traffic has kind of a more relaxed culture in many ways. But as we got off the plane and drove through the streets in Agra, it was clear we were in a completely different place. The landscape was different, with beautiful mountains around us. There was kind of a sandier, drier, more desert-like landscape. Different colored buildings, lots of pink sandstone, and everything from snake charmers in the street to camels tied up in parking lots were solid reminders that we were in a completely different place.
We climbed up these stairs and there were elephants with these trays like looks like tea trays with metal bars around. When we got pretty high up the hill, there was these ledges, some parts there weren't, and over you can see this beautiful view of a lake, and there's like a maze or something with grass. Garden.
Yeah.
It was really beautiful, but I was scared. We were all creaking to one side because everyone was sitting on this side. So I tried to get on the other.
On a big elephant.
On a big elephant.
So it felt a little unstable, huh?
Yeah, very unstable.
Yeah, so when we pulled up to Amer Fort, I was really struck by just how big and winding up the side of a mountain it was, which is unlike any structure I've seen before, really. And so we had the opportunity to ride an elephant up the fort to the top where the palace and all the buildings are. And that was a really cool experience because you very much felt like you may be transported in time back to when the fort was being used, since people really did ride up the fort on elephants. And it was completely surreal to be on an animal that huge and be doing something that people did hundreds and hundreds of years ago. It was really, really neat.
An elephant right now, believe it or not, riding up the fort in Jaipur. Karen, how's your ride going?
This is wild. I didn't expect to be climbing on an elephant and going up a mountain today. Yes.
that there were slaves that had to turn a wheel all day to get the fountain to work. It blows my mind.
So Jantar Mantar was really cool because it's this complex that has all of these really complex astrological instruments that the king used, and everything from a sundial that is still within seconds accuracy, and huge, enormous structure, not just a small sundial, but it's, hundreds of feet up into the air, just enormous. And then each different astrological sign had its own sort of dial where people would go and check the horoscope for anyone in their family, as well as an area where you could actually see, based on the position of the stars and the sun and the moon and all of that, what someone's astrological sign was, down to, which moon is rising and this, that, and the other, to get a very detailed horoscope. And so they would do this. Our guide explained to us when babies were born, and the king spent lots of time studying astrology there. We were really lucky to have a tour guide who has a PhD in astrology. So he took us to each of the signs for each of our family members, and based on the time of birth was able to use the instruments and kind of show us how it worked, and then give a description of personality traits. And we were just jaws dropped in amazement at how accurate his descriptions were of each member of our family based on the day, time, location, and minute and hour of their birth.
Yeah, March 8th.
March 8th, you are Pisces, and yours?
September 23rd.
23rd September, you are Libra. First, we are going to see the Libra. Come here. Is there on the top. When is 23rd September? We say sun is rising with the sun Libra rising there, because sun sign is Libra that day. When sun is 30 degree up, we say now Scorpio rising, then Sagittarius rising, then Aquarius rising. So sun changing and Shadow moves here. So he is Libra. What time? Where he born?
Oregon in the United States.
On the west coast.
Okay.
West coast of
He is ascendant Leo.
Okay.
Leo ascendant mean very dominant, first thing. Second, very intelligent. Third, very independent, very self-made, don't want help of other, don't like advice of other.
That's
right? Stubborn.
Dead on.
Oh, yes.
Oh, wow.
Stubborn.
Yeah.
Stubborn.
It was really neat. I think that astrology is something that in the modern world we sort of have as a just for fun, or you see it pop up in an article or on your phone. But to really see how this has directed people's lives for thousands of years, making decisions about everything from what to wear, colors to use, food and medicine, all based on these very detailed astrological readings, was just fascinating.
The stepwell was this huge well with lots of stairs, but the thing is, they were stairs with little bumps, but if you tripped on a shoelace or game over.
Right?
Yeah.
There's no rails on the side.
There's no
and it's
rails.
Just free fall, just this huge, massive.
And there's the steps on the side.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
pretty impressive. I would not choose to walk down the steps of the stepwell either. I wouldn't trust myself. We also learned that only men did it because women were not allowed. It would take my breath away to see. Took my breath away to see it without people in it, but it would definitely make my heart beat a little faster. get exported to other parts of India and all around the world. So, for example, really incredible hand-knotted Persian rugs. We got to go see how those were made and visit a small factory where people were still making those by hand, which was also cool to see because we had walked through a palace museum where we saw 400-year-old Persian rugs made by the exact same method. So you really see how they stand up to the test of time, and even the 400-year-old rug was still intact and beautiful, and you could see its pattern, which just shows what an enduring art form it is. So that was really cool and special to get to see and learn about. Also, many people know Jaipur for the gems and jewelry that comes from Jaipur to all over the world, and so to see artisans actually crafting by hand jewels and precious gems, and for the kids to get to actually use some of those tools and try that was really neat and really special. And we had fun doing a little bit of shopping at some of these places. The other cool art form that we got a chance to experience firsthand was block printing on fabric, which we had in the US. We had purchased from India some nice block printed bed covers, and to get to see how they're made and what makes them special, and the families that have been doing this for many generations, was really neat. And one common thread that we heard at all of these factories is that the government is currently subsidizing these art forms to some extent. They often pay the shipping and various fees, and a percentage of the cost to the artisans to encourage people to continue to patronize these art forms and keep them alive in India, because they are being replaced by factory woven, cheaper mass-produced items. For me, I've seen a lot of images of Delhi, and almost all of them involved chaotic electrical wires, deep poverty, dirt, narrow streets, and so forth. And yes, these things are present in Delhi. However, I was surprised that what I haven't seen in many modern depictions of Delhi is how absolutely beautiful the city is, and how good the infrastructure really is around, in New Delhi. The streets are wide, the traffic, there's a lot of it, but it tends to generally flow really well. There's beautiful artworks, well constructed, roadways and roundabouts and traffic signals all seem to work the way that they're supposed to. And it was really impressive, and it was a very, very peaceful city despite how densely populated it is. So it was really neat to see that.
We all split into groups of 2. I was with the instructor. And Julian said, I overheard him. He said, I know this sounds crazy, but it actually smells like electricity. And I kind of agreed with him, because there was all these dangling wires and all these noises going around, and it was overwhelming, but really fun and terrified. And
Yeah, so to me, the market was really a cool experience, because it's another place where I feel like time has stood entirely still, and that I was able to experience this place, which is, obviously highly used by people today, much in exactly the same way that I would have experienced it, 50, 75, 100 years ago, with probably not a ton of difference. And there were, the monkeys are running along the buildings, and the vendors are just packed in, and everybody kind of knows where they're going somehow in this crazy labyrinth, and the smells and the spices and the beautiful colors. We drove through a gully that had all of the wedding stores and shops, and so the fabrics were just incredibly bright and colorful and absolutely gorgeous, and just packed in as densely as you possibly could. And as we traveled through the tiny gully, I couldn't believe that there was room for our rickshaw, for people walking by, for the shops. And if you had one little finger outside, you're gonna crash into something. But it was absolutely an amazing experience, and another little time capsule that India had to offer. And so it's one thing to read in a textbook about the migration of people and the wars that happened thousands of years ago, and it's a completely different thing to actually go and stand in a place where all of these things happened, or all of this kind of culminated. And so I just had goosebumps and kind of tingles down my spine, because I'm pretty sure I've never been in any place that had so much ancient history, and contentious and controversial ancient history at that. To see this what was once a great Hindu temple and place of worship, then pretty much destroyed and rebuilt into this, Islamic center, and to think about all of the people and processes and war and things that went into that, and be standing there was just amazing. And it just looked like something out of a storybook, with parrots on these ancient ruins flying in and out, and surrounded by beautiful trees. And the sheer enormity, something that I've really come to see and appreciate in India, the sheer enormity of the engineering that went into building it, both the Hindu and the Islamic portions, is also just mind-blowing in a time before having all of the modern tools and instruments that we rely on. One thing that I did want to share a little bit about was how it was to travel through the Golden Triangle with 3 young children. So we've got kids who are 12, 8, and 1.5. And some of the great things and not so great things about that experience. Overall, it was really wonderful.
Yes.
And amazing. And I think what made it possible was having a really experienced, well-versed tour guide who understood both our culture and the cultures we were visiting, and Indian culture really well, because he truly was able to make things as seamless as possible for us in a way that we never would have been able to navigate. So we were able to do and see probably 10 times more things than we would have been able to do if we were trying to just travel around on our own. If you're traveling with kids, I would 100% recommend doing it with a highly rated tour guide, preferably one who is fluent or has an understanding in your own cultural background as well as the cultural background of the place that you're visiting, to help marry those two things in as stress-free way as possible.
Yes, and we basically, we have traveled maybe 4 or 5 times significantly, and all of the trips were really great. They were really hard, and we learned something on every trip. There was one trip where we were sick. There was another trip where the hotel had some difficulties, things that just made it hard for us to enjoy ourselves. But we hit the jackpot, right? Like on this trip, we had a great guide, like you said. We had a great vehicle to drive around in. We had a 10-seater van, and it made everything so much better. So this worked great for us. I can't say enough about having a guide. We're going to link him below again so you can see his contact info if you ever want to go to India and the Golden Triangle.
Yeah, Narendra was wonderful. And the vehicle was really wonderful too for our group because it gave us a little bit of a peaceful sanctuary in a very chaotic place away from home. So that was really nice. I do think that we had a fairly good mix of things that the kids could do hands-on that was engaging for them and historical sites where hopefully they'll appreciate it as they get older and they look back and we have these videos of the places they went. But in the moment when they're tired and hungry, the historical sites are less exciting than like a rickshaw ride or getting to weave with their hands or do something like that. So having a mix of those activities was really important. And I will say we probably could have gone a little bit heavier on the kid activities and skipped a few of the historical sites. It's hard to say that because we saw so many wonderful things, but we did see so much that some of the value was maybe lost in just doing it all so quickly. And we didn't even get through the whole list because we went slower than many people do since we did have 3 kids. The other thing I would say is staying in as nice of a hotel as your budget will allow and then advocating for what you need was really important for us because we, for example, our first hotel was absolutely incredible and comfortable and let us kind of decompress at the end of stressful travel days. We had another hotel where we were thrown into the middle of a floor because it's wedding season of giant Indian family wedding. Literally, we were between like the bride's room and the parents' room, and all of the wedding party was there. And people were smoking, and we were not going to be able to sleep. It was very clear. And so we put in the extra energy, and our tour guide had our back 100%. And helped make other arrangements for us. We ended up on another floor of the hotel and everything worked out. But it was so important to just, even though we were only sleeping and leaving again very quickly, to be able to have a peaceful place to sleep and have 8 hours of reasonable quiet and ease made it so that we could actually absorb the sights and sounds of the next day and reset a little bit. So I highly recommend splurging as much as you can on the comforts where you can get them so that your nervous systems are not in overdrive all the time.
Remember to that point that a 5-star hotel, if you're from the United States and India, it might feel a little bit more like a 3 to 4-star hotel. So always go one cut up if you can.
Ways I've gotten used to less physical boundaries and space in India, but I felt like as a female that I could actually be more physically assertive about protecting our space when out in public because it was going to take more, you know, I guess I was gambling a little bit that they weren't going to push back on me as much as they might on a male. And so I would get in between hawkers who were being overly aggressive and touching and trying to, you know, touching the baby, touching Cameron, and I would insert myself in between. And as a female, I felt like I could, like, and they would be like, wow, what's, because maybe it's not as common here, I don't know, but, and it works, and and they would leave us alone. So, but the guide was critical, and having our transportation be safe and private was really nice, because we knew that if we could get through the very short periods where we had to walk through those zones where they're very aggressively hawking or there are, you know, pickpockets. Also, our tour guide knew like which entrance to the mosques had the pickpockets and which ones were more protected. We would never have known that, right? So even those kinds of things were just really helpful.
Other than that, highly recommend that you visit the Golden Triangle. This was, speaking as somebody who's done a lot of traveling before, it was just an unbelievable experience on every level.
Yes. And we did feel very safe. It was more like annoyance. We felt safe and well cared for, and it's definitely something I would do again with children and recommend with kids. I think it's a really cool experience, and that they had a lot of fun too.
Thanks for watching our journey to Jaipur and Delhi. Join us next time for more fun adventures.